Welcome back to Storytime with Karen and Kevin. I'm your host today, JF Kevin. Today we're going to be reading stories from the subreddit, Am I the Jerk? Now, before we get started, this would be a great time to go ahead and hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Our first story today is by Illustrious Act 439. Am I the jerk for saying I should have been asked before my son got a massive tattoo? My son is 8 and thinks tattoos are cool, just like dinosaurs or UFOs or pirates. His mom decided to do something outrageous by letting him get a fake sleeve tattoo of dinosaurs, UFOs, and pirates. I found out after his teacher sent us an email about it. He thought it was too distracting. I said it looked absolutely trashy, and his teacher agreed with me. My ex-wife said she couldn't believe we were making such a big deal out of what was equivalent to markers, and then reminded me that she doesn't have tattoos, but I do. I told her she should have ran this by me first. I would have told her to tone it down. When I got home, I gave him a bath, and I tried washing it off, but it just wouldn't come off. This isn't that cheap stuff that comes in cereal boxes. So, am I the jerk? Okay, OP, so there's a couple things here. Like, I'm gonna be honest, I can kind of very vaguely see why you might have wanted to be talked to first before your ex-wife put a giant sleeve on your son's arm and side. But, unfortunately, you are the jerk because, first off, you're a hypocrite because you have tattoos. And secondly, what's wrong with you calling your child trashy? Like, that's just like, that hurt your son, and it's not real tattoos. What, are you gonna condemn him if he follows in your footsteps and gets tattoos? That's ridiculous. Like, you have no, like, that's so silly. And on top of that, to have his teacher agree with you when you're insulting your son, that's terrible. So both you and the teacher are absolute jerks. This next story is by Surgeon Colonel. Am I the jerk for snapping at my wife and asking her for 5 effing minutes before she gave me the baby when I got home from work? My wife and I have a baby girl that's 9 months old. Her and my wife are so very important to me, and I don't want anyone to doubt that. I'm an ER nurse. I love my job, and right now my wife doesn't have a job and is focusing on motherhood. I am in full support of this, and I know what she is doing is very difficult and taxing, but I think my job is sometimes a little more than that. I have really bad days. Like, I see the worst things a person could possibly see, and it used to not bother me, but since my daughter was born, it's just so much worse. Especially when it's a younger woman or little girl. However, I don't let this affect my work, and I don't let my wife in on these things. She's a little fragile when it comes to things like this, to the point where she can't even watch horror movies. Recently, we had a car crash victim. She was just about 8 years old and riding on a bike. The driver fled the scene, and she was in such a bad state. Like, I could see her organs. I knew we were likely gonna lose her, and we did. Like I said though, after I did my job to the best I could, I moved on, got lunch, did whatever I needed to do. Usually when I get home, I take the baby, but I was just too distracted that day. I wanted to help my wife, but I just needed some time. I don't know why, but I couldn't handle my wife's request for help. When I asked her for a minute, she told me that she's been on her feet all day and needed a break. We had a small argument as I was trying to avoid telling her what I saw, and eventually I just snapped. I raised my voice and told her, "Can I just get 5 effing minutes to myself before you jump on me?" She of course was mad, and it started a much bigger argument, and now she's convinced I don't value what she does. So, am I the jerk? Well, down in the comments we have a pretty good response by colorectal surgeon. Nah, but you two need to communicate better. Tell her when you need comfort. When you have a really bad day, try texting her when you're leaving and let her know that a little girl died today. And that when you get home, you just need her to hug you for a few minutes. Ask her for comfort before you get there, and I think that'll make a pretty big difference. So like I said, I think that's a pretty good response. I don't think you need to tell her that a little girl died. I think you can leave that out. So I don't think you're necessarily the jerk. I do think that you and your wife need to have a conversation. And I also think your wife's just a little bit of a jerk because she's like, "Oh, I've been on my feet all day," but so have you. And on top of the fact that, you see all these horrible traumatic things, I'm sure that you work like 12 on, 12 off, like I like a lot of nurses do. So you're also working incredibly long hours. So not the jerk. I kind of want to say your wife's a little bit of a jerk, but she doesn't really know what's going on. So I'm gonna take that back. I think you both just need to have a conversation. And our last story today is by user ThinIncrease4140. Am I the jerk for telling my husband to get over his dead mother? I know that the title sounds horrible, but please listen to my side. I've been married to my husband Andy for 4 years. Last June, around 11 months ago, Andy's mother passed away in a car accident. It was totally unexpected. He was super close to her and it hit him hard. He developed really bad depression. I tried my best to stay strong for him and offer comfort whenever he needed it, but it's been so hard being his emotional crutch. Andy quit his job, he stays home all day, and he barely pays attention to me. I've had to pay all of the bills. Soon, I realized that our relationship was dying. Intimacy was long gone, and Andy rarely even talked to me. I begged him to go to a therapist, and I tried all the ways to help him. He refused all of them. It broke my heart to see the man I love fall to pieces. Yesterday, Andy and I had an argument. I came home from a really bad day at work, and I found him surrounded by rubbish on the couch. I tiredly asked him to please clean it up, but he refused. Something just snapped in me, and I yelled, "I think it's time you got over your mom." Andy looked at me like I was crazy and said, "How could you say such a thing? My mother is not like some shit ex. It's my mother, and she's dead." I apologized, but told him to look at himself. No job, depressed, throwing away his life and relationship with his wife. He said, "It's already so hard. Don't make it harder. I don't need you scolding me at the hardest point of my life." I tried to get my point across, but he abruptly got mad, called me an effing witch, and left. I'll admit what I said was horrible. It was unfair to him. But I don't know what to do anymore. I feel burnt out and I desperately need someone too, just like him. I feel so alone every minute of every day. Am I the jerk? Wow, these last two stories were bummers. OP, overwhelmingly over on Reddit, you are not the jerk. And I will say I mostly agree with that. I do think what you said was incredibly cruel, but it's not like you said it 3 months after he lost his mom. And unfortunately, I remember when I lost my parent, both of them, unfortunately. And I had got the news at work when my dad died. He was the one I was closest to. And I had to leave work. I mean, I couldn't function. I had to take like a week and a half off. And I was just like Andy. I didn't do anything. I had the TV on in front of me, but I wasn't paying attention to it. I was just trying to keep myself from continuously crying and staying in that depressing memory lane. It sounds to me like Andy really needs to see a therapist, and I sincerely hope that the two of you can fix your problems together, and if not, I hope that both of you can move on and be happy. I really do mean that, OP. Alright, well that wraps up our episode today. If you're listening on YouTube or Facebook, go ahead and let us know in the comments what you think about these ratings. Do you agree that certain people were the jerks or not the jerks? Also, you can also follow our Facebook page or go ahead and follow us on Twitter if you'd like. Otherwise, I hope to see you next episode. Later!